Okay, welcome everyone to the STS meeting. This is winter session at the beautiful Boar's Head. I hope you grabbed something to eat. We did a little bit of introductions earlier. I just wanted to introduce everyone to Yuri, because I can never say his last name. He's a new physician, a new surgeon at Centera. He's joining the group today because he has a lot of, interest and experience and can help answer some questions for us. Just a reminder, CME credits are offered. If you run into any issues, let me know or Eddie know, and we'll get you squared away. And actually, everyone knows where the restroom is, just for housekeeping. It's right across the hall is the restrooms. What do I have to go over? For your data managers, if you haven't already, I sent out a survey just asking a little bit about your experience. How long have you been a data manager? What are some of your strengths and weaknesses? When I first came here last year, one of the interests was to create a mentorship program for data managers, also some type of handbook, if you will. So based off your filling out that survey, that helped me reach out to whom, would be a good point of person to help build that. Yes, dear. You didn't?
I had a survey about, I'm not sure I got that.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
recall it, but
Okay.
it might have been when I was out.
Okay.
About the data and such.
Okay. So actually a cool thing that I did, because I know we send out so many surveys, I put together on our well page, I need two hands. So on our website, if you go under the members page and you log in Richmond 2019, capital R, no spaces. No, I don't need to say the password. I added a link for active surveys.
Are we supposed to have a password to that?
Richmond 2019, capital R, no spaces. So if you go here, there's a directory. So I'm still trying to build on the directory, get everyone's title, just in case you wanted to reach out to everyone, We'll go into committees and task force, but the active surveys, because I know we send out so many. But any surveys that we have that's active, I'm putting them here. But I will send you all the survey. Okay, and if you're interested in helping to develop the mentorship program, or the handbook, or any other resources that you feel would be pertinent for data managers, please let me know, because I think this is a great opportunity. All right. So next, to begin, I don't have anything else. Tracey, you want to dive in?
Okay.
All right, let me hand it over to Tracey. For recording purposes, would you mind?
Well, everybody who went to AQO was going to do a section, but most of those people are not here. I think Beth and I are here, and Beth did not volunteer. So I did want, and does Eddie have a copy of the new data forms?
He was only able to make one copy of each one.
Okay.
I do have them on PowerPoint. I can squeeze. Not PowerPoint.
Is it on the website now? I haven't looked in a while.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Everybody here's at it.
Or did I pull it?
I also have it on my computer. I can mail it to everybody because I scanned it in.
It's smaller. Is it smaller?
It is smaller. It is smaller. They've gotten rid of a few things in the aorta section. They, I think, tried to make it a little bit more logical. Like when you have an AVR root, it's all in one section, together. It's not here and there and everywhere. They've gotten rid of, just tried to make it a little bit easier to use, and they got rid of a lot of things.
Was it 30% like they were planning?
Yeah. It's probably 30% if you count each and every field that you ever have to do. And
There's probably a lot of stuff you never touched.
Right.
No, it's gone.
Exactly.
Did you guys
Anything big? It was pretty much a review, except for the new IQVIA. I don't know if everybody got on the webinar last month.
Yeah. Not yesterday's, but
Yeah, not yesterday's. The one
before.
last month where you need to make sure you've done a couple things with your IT departments and stuff. Do I need to go over that? Because I did.
Are you talking about just so that you get the information? Is that what you mean?
Hold on, let me.
Or beyond?
I took some notes yesterday. Okay, the IQVIA, there's like four, not websites, but they're going to be sending you things.
Yeah.
You need to whitelist them.
Yeah.
You need to make sure you have the correct Windows or Chrome version to be able to upload your cases.
Okay.
I don't. I don't have that, so I have to get that fixed. That we don't need it to have any legal things done because it's still covered under our original contracts. So we don't need to do anything, go through legal. Although if they want to, they do have the security dossier. If you send to the STS, they will send it to you. Let's see, what else did they do? All right, there is another webinar. I don't know if anybody wants to do this. It covers congenital, thoracic, not TAVR, but the LVAD stuff, and the adult cardiac. It's about 2.5 hours long. But it covers everything. It's like 15 minutes for this, 15 minutes for this. They allot 45 minutes for the adult cardiac. And it is on December 11th. It starts at 1, ends at 2:45. So it's only an hour and 2 hours. I'll send that. I'll forward that email to everybody. And it's what the Cleveland Clinic is doing, just to go over everything that was set out at AQO. Let's see. There really wasn't a whole lot said. It's just that, they did go over a couple of things. Let me check my notes here. When Linda comes, she's going to go over the mitral valve and the maze stuff. That was her job. The IQVIA was pretty much the big news out there. How that's going to change, and you're going to be getting new passwords coming out probably in the next month. Let's see, the aorta section is probably the one that's going to shrink the most. They're going to have new sheets out. It's still going to be pretty extensive, but there will be new worksheets out that your physicians can fill in if they are so likely to do that. Mine fill out about 3 things. So everything else is a no or unknown. They did stress that you are not to guess anything. Leave it blank. Don't guess. Let's see. Anything strike you out there?
I think it's another copy.
I don't know if any.
Yeah, that's the same.
I'm not sure if anyone else here had any question as far as IQVIA is concerned, but IQVIA is not going to replace DCRI. Your data will still go to DCRI and will be evaluated through them. This is a middle step, if you will, so that we get a quicker turnaround so that we can reevaluate and resend that data. Make sure we reharvest and get the tightest data in within the appropriate timeline. So I don't know if anyone else had that question, but that was a lot of the questions floating around in New Orleans. They talked about echo and so forth. I'm not sure if other people have needs for that, but I can tell you that everything as far as slides are concerned are already up so that we're able to have access to that. And if there are questions, maybe we can go back over that on a different meeting. I'm afraid I did not come prepared to speak to these things. So I lost my sister, so at any rate, moving forward, if there are questions with respect to the echo and whatnot, we can maybe have another date, maybe our next VCSQI, we can go over some of those questions for some of our newer data managers.
Okay, another big thing that came out there is they're going to have a webinar every month. So be looking for that. It's going to be, it's the same time every month. It's like the second Tuesday or Wednesday and at 1 o'clock. It's put it on your calendar. It's going to be there every month. In addition.
And they've been posting them.
Yeah,
they're miss it because I can never get to it when it's live, so they post them.
Right, everything is there, and you can download the PDF, and it's pretty good. It kind of explains what they did. So if you don't want to listen to the hour and a half of questions and answers, read the PDF. It's pretty much everything. They did have a big section on hemodynamics. They really, really want you to use the very latest EF or value you have before they go into the OR. If this cath was on the 10th and the echo was on the 11th, you take the echo value. If the echo was on the 10th and the cath was on the 11th, you take the cath value for EFs. If there's nothing pre-op within 6 months, 6 months is your limit for the echo stuff, then you can use the intra-op TEE not the post-op valve, but the pre-valve.
As long as it's documented.
If you can find it.
Because it's never documented.
That's another issue.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Is the presence or absence of balloon pump change that? Whether you use the echo or not?
If that's,
Or the
I would hope there was an EF before a balloon pump went in, or at some point.
So what I'm asking is, for example, if you cath a patient,
Mm-hmm.
they have bad ventricle, you put a balloon pump, and next day get an echo, and it looks better. Is it looking better because the patient's better?
If that's the only echo value we have, that's what we
You just
use.
wind up using it.
And you use the one closest to the surgical time. So, you put the balloon pump in, you're giving them stuff to make them be better.
Well,
And then you do the echo. That's what we're capturing. If you
Or-
don't do that,
or even a more dramatic if you put an impella in somebody.
Right.
They'll make
but we
it-
also catch that impella was put in pre-op, and that carries weight in the risk model.
Does it?
Yes.
But you see where I'm going, because it
Yes.
falsely change what.
It does, because you get more
You're
weight
using
if
it.
it's 25 as opposed to 50 or 60 or 15. The better your documentation is, the better we're able to capture exactly how they were. But that's, what they have told us now. Closest to the OR, you can use a cath report. That's a year old now. They prefer not to do that. I think that was in the last FAQ update. What else did they say? It really was just a review. There wasn't a whole lot of new information given out. They did not mention the new version barely at all. They didn't want to have that much of a discussion. So y'all saved your money. Missed New Orleans, but saved your money.
As far as your questions are concerned, Doctor, I will field that question to the STS just to see what their answers are, because that's actually a very good question.
I'm curious. I'll tell you the other thing is when cardiologist wants me to operate, a lot of times EF goes up because they want to send the patient. They're like, oh, it's not bad, it's 35 now. When 2 days ago it was 20.
That's called efficient.
and then you look at the pictures and you say, oh, really?
But if you put that in your op report, taking this patient, he has an EF of this, we're supposed to take the physician, our surgeon's,
Dictate
opinion
his
over
notes,
the
trauma.
cardiologist.
Yeah.
How interesting.
So if the cardiologist says, left main is 25 and you think it's 75, and you say that in your op note or you say that somewhere pre-op, we will use 75 and not 25.
She's exactly right. I tell my surgeons all the time, if we have a patient that's got a sketchy workup that doesn't reflect what they feel the patient's true condition is, put it in your in your op note.
Put it, in the beginning of the op note before,
Put it in the
this is
beginning
what,
of your op note and
his problems are. And then go into, the body of your op note.
It will carry weight.
It will carry weight. It will help
I've
with
been
your.
here a half hour and I learned a lot already.
If it's not there, it didn't exist.
Did not get very many questions from you all this past month. Just, it's like the 1 or 2 questions that were rehashed online. Does anybody have questions that they want to put before the group? Where are you from?
Southside Regional.
Oh, okay.
Pittsburgh.
Leslie's actually our data manager. She's in
I-
the other room.
Oh, she's in the other room.
We're taking notes.
Okay. Because I have talked to her on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
Anything.
What about like renal failure? I had one of the physicians asked if you do get to kind of tweak them before surgery, like if you have someone that's thinks going to do poorly, you bring them in and maybe do a round of dialysis beforehand. Will that? I guess,
That'll take him right out of renal failure.
Okay.
Because if he has pre-op dialysis in that same admission, and it's pre-op, he can't have renal failure afterwards.
Okay, so once you have it like chronic or you have dialysis before, it'll.
Mhm.
Oh, interesting.
A lot of our physicians, I think Dr. Spear
We spoke about
dialyzes anybody over 3 beforehand. I don't think we have a strict number, but we have dialyzed more people pre-op in the last year or 2. When they have that, they, have had renal failure for years and years, and, they come in at a 4 or something, or a 3.5.
Where they're heading,
And then they have the cath, and then they had, that's where they're going. So they have dialyzed pre-op, and then not been on dialysis afterwards.
We found it difficult at Mary Washington as far as getting, especially our most senior group, on board with pre-op dialysis or cases like that. They want them to be absolute end stage. We do have another group that we're trying to talk to that is a little bit more open to possibly doing preoperative dialysis. So we're
Oh,
trying to
they've been
move that way
cooperative.
because it really does hurt us.
Yeah.
That and the crazy AFib, you know that they've had AFib for 15 years, off and on. They roll in and they happen to be in sinus for that split second,
Yeah.
and then they have AFib afterward. So,
I just say, well, everybody's in the same boat, so you're all being measured with the same stick, so don't worry about it.
Okay, there was one other thing. Our 30-day readmission. They said in the audit that people weren't, they couldn't find documentation that they had been contacted or whatever 30 days after their discharge date to see if they'd been readmitted other places. What I had been doing was I would look in and see if they were admitted to any of my hospitals. If I see it's been 2 months since they went home and there's nothing there, but I can see they've been to this doctor and this doctor and this doctor, I consider that not to be readmitted. They really don't count that. They want documentation. This patient has not been readmitted from.
Based on.
Somebody can call them. They can do it in their 30-day check back at the doctor's office, but sometimes that's not 30 days after
No,
readmission
it's
or after discharge. But they want more definitive documentation.
What's more definitive? Is it cardiac rehab? Would that count that they're enrolled in cardiac rehab?
If someone in cardiac rehab asked them if they had been readmitted somewhere, and it's
So
stated somewhere.
They're looking for an actual, like a progress note.
Yes.
Something in.
In
So
writing.
We're making phone calls to the patient.
That doesn't count.
That
No,
doesn't-
if you put it in the,
If
But
I
it's
put it
gotta
in the
be in the
medical
medical
record.
record.
or you can keep track on a piece of paper. You got to keep that for 4 years or
you have
however
But it
many
doesn't have
years.
to be in the medical record.
No, it does not have to be in the medical record. It can be on,
Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
an Excel spreadsheet that you keep, that you contacted them on this day,
Okay.
calling or however.
Okay.
They'll have
So I'll just beef that up, because I just have a checkbox one, I don't.
After you spoke with them, what they
Do that
said
then.
in the readmission tab decisions.
Yeah.
Well, I've been doing like you've been
That should be
doing.
fine.
Right, and they did not like that. And I was audited, and they, you know, I think I missed 20 things, and 15 of them were the readmission, because it wasn't specifically documented that they were not readmitted. You could see, you know, they were doing great through all these doctor's appointments.
It's interesting to me, though, that they'll accept an Excel spreadsheet versus requiring it to be in the, I mean, you
Yeah,
know
it's
what I'm
kinda
saying?
hokey,
I
yeah.
could totally just, it just
You could.
feels a little bit
You
like
could.
I rated myself as opposed to
Well, I mean,
something that you're gonna put into your hospital's documentation feels a little more weighted, you know? That's just, but let's not stir that up.
Exactly.
and that may be coming.
Right.
People may, you know, that may become part of the you know, the answer to this.
I did have a question for you now that you mention it. Unless you know, but Dr. O'Shea said it again today, the extubation time at 23.29. If you're past 23 hours, 29 minutes, like if you go to 23:30,
I think
it rolls over.
ARMIS rolls it over. So what you do is, it may give you that error message.
Okay.
Just don't code it. Don't code, because it's not over that. And they'll see when they go into the record, even though they'll see that there's, you know, a discrepancy or whatever you see on your DQR.
Okay.
But if, you know, you got to be.
As long as you don't check the prolonged event.
Right,
even if
it's
the
not
time
a
is
plur-
like 23:50.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
It won't
Because sometimes
Take
it is
it.
by the skin.
It will give you the DQR, but you don't code it. I mean, you're just going to have to live with it. A lot of times, some of the DQRs are just for you to look at it. You may not be able to fix
So you're
it.
saying your ARMIS software rounds it up?
Yes,
Oh, okay. I'm not ARMIS, so I didn't know.
ARMIS rounds it up.
I think it's misunderstood though in administration, because then they're saying, well, you have to have extubated then by 23, 29, and we're both being quiet going, no, I think it's just like a recording purpose, but that if you're still within the 24-hour guideline.
Well,
for
because
not
you put it in
being
minute by
ventilation.
minute in our software.
Right.
And they calculate it, you know, it'll probably come out as 23.5 on the,
Okay.
or
Okay.
4.9 or whatever.
Okay.
You just, you know, don't code it, even when it comes back and says, you know, according to this, it's,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So just don't check.
Because
the
we use
prolonged.
Cedar on, and it's, when it calculates, it goes out to the fraction, but, you know, obviously a fraction of a minute to the 10th place is what it does. I've never seen that.
yeah, I mean, you just have to make sure you've calculated right and that, you know, you've got the right times and.
Yeah.
Any questions, anything else?
They will be coming out with new worksheets for the physicians. I don't know if everybody uses those or not. A risk model, a composite risk model will be coming out for TAVR.
Are they updating the May stuff? Of course, you said they didn't really talk about this.
If you look on there, I don't think you have to code quite as much for that anymore.
Look that hard, I just kind of.
There's a couple things you don't have to,
Because
like,
I always have the clinical specialists that come in, fill it out, because they're there most of the time when they do the actual maze during surgery, and they always tell me, this is outdated every time I hand it to them.
they're changing the cabbage workflow and the cath report stuff to be, you know, in step with the ACC cardiology things. From now on, it's going to be, everything has to be 75% stenosed to be counted as a diseased vessel, except for the left main. Left main will still be 50. You know, because right now we're using 50% as a disease. They were going back to think about that, but that they want to, this is what the ACC does. They want to be
Same.
the same. Yeah, everybody was a little upset about that because, you know, you always have three vessel disease, for the last 20 years, and now it's going to maybe be different.
Oh, yeah, it'll be definitely different.
And you won't be able to query your data with the historical data.
Interesting.
That's pretty much all I didn't take any more notes
And
than
this is
that.
planning what, next summer?
July 1st. That was it. Linda was supposed to, said she was going to do a big thing on the mitral valve and maze, so when she comes in, we'll make her do that. Okay.
Thank you, ladies.
Oh, one last thing. Debbie Lieberman retired. She was one of our regional leaders. So we need another regional leader. All that entails is 4 phone calls a year. And you're usually online with all the other regional leaders and someone from the STS. So you get some good information. It's less than an hour. And then at AQO, you spend, if you have time, an hour at the regional leader desk and answer any questions anybody has. They just ask for an update from the VCSQI on these quarterly phone calls. Eddie's always on. Eddie will do it for you if you don't want to do it. Do I have a volunteer?
I don't feel qualified. I
No,
say
they-
yes, but I don't feel qualified. I feel like
I don't
I'll learn from it, but I don't know that I
First
would be able to
question,
contribute adequately.
I mean, it really,
Everybody's concerned.
You're so
I know all our old people here who have been with me for years and years are not here today. Usually it just kind of is a bang, everybody talks. I doubt Chris wants to do it because she is so busy. I'll see if maybe Linda wants to do it, but I mean, if she
doesn't,
it's
you don't
totally
want anybody
fine.
else.
Or Vicky or whoever. It really, there are groups that don't even have a regional group and they're trying to get one together. And, all they want to know is what you've done in the last quarter, what VCSQI has done. And really, Eddie's almost always online with us.
Okay. On the call.
On the call, online, because there's a webinar. It's a call or a webinar. And you do get good information from the STS. So, and it really is very brief. So,
She doesn't do it.
What about Judy?
maybe Judy will do it.
She's good. And she's seasoned, okay? The rest of us, greenies, I don't know. But I think someone who's seasoned, Linda Halpin would be a good suggestion, and Judy would be a very good suggestion. You're already one, right? Okay, so you just need a compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Linda
I'm
or
ready
Judy.
to get 2 new people in there now. I've been in it for a bunch of years. It's time for some new people. New people need to do this. It's not hard.
She's a little go-getter too. I always found her refreshing the way she jumped in with the STS when we'd be on calls, and Judy. She
Yes,
just like
she's wonderful.
Look,
So I think
she's still doing patient care, so she's seeing it
super
from both
strong
sides.
candidate.
right.
All right, well, keep that in mind. I will ask Judy. I know she just had knee surgery yesterday, I think.
Oh, no.
So she'll be out for at least 6 weeks.
Just reach out to me.
Okay.
Could I ask you a question about this update on the heart cath? So you said whatever your surgeon says is trumps the pre-op stuff. So if I see a consult and cardiologist said that the RCA is 60% stenosed, and when I review it, I think it's a vessel that should be bypassed, and I say it's a significantly diseased vessel. Or do
All right,
I
if
have
you
to
said significant, then I can,
Put a
I think
number
I
on
can,
it.
yeah, put a number on it. Put a number, put 75.
Yeah.
Well, because
Or
what
whatever you
happens,
think it is.
and it's interesting because since I started operating, I've had more than a handful of these where you look at the vessel and when they say, especially if cardiologists didn't bother to do the hemodynamic assessment, if they do, then it's easier because it's either FFR negative or FFR positive. But if they didn't do that and they eyeballed it, they said it's 60%, and patient winds up on your doorstep, big vessel and you think it has to be revascularized, and I do it, a lot of times I measure flow at the end, and you can see the graft is a good graft because it provides flow. So you did the right thing. But what do we do preoperatively to justify that this is a...
I'm not sure who your data person is, but if I see that, you know, my physician reviewed the cath films, he's going to revascularize this, this, and this. He usually says, you know, the LAD is 90%. The OM, maybe, you know, not the
Beginning of his operative note.
He lists
Yeah.
20 things
To me,
sometimes.
that's the best place.
Right
for
at
it.
the very beginning of the outcome.
Yes.
He's got hypertension, hypercholesterolemia, he's diabetic, came in with heart failure, class, whatever.
Yes.
Diastolic,
Everybody neglects the
this
heart
versus-
failure.
You know, need to put a class in, and you know,
Yes.
you get, even if it's, almost everybody is a class 2, you know, at least. And you get significant weight with that in your risk model.
So many are not documented. In the
Right,
claim.
even a class 1 gets more weight than if you don't
Then leave it
say
alone.
it.
I always call it you're missing low-hanging fruit. Grab it.
It's right there. You know, not everybody is a 4 or a 3, but you don't need that. You get weight for 1 and 2. If
EF, and there's preserved EF too, and I don't know that they do a real workup for the CHF
I mean-
factor and it's been a hot topic.
But, you know, list the 20 things, it's right there. That person came in. You know, the RCA, you know, say, I think it's 75. And then they ought to use that.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Any other questions?
Actually, can I have a volunteer for next March? I would love to come and watch a data manager extract data. Can somebody help me see what you do? Oh, we have Linda here. Yes.
Oh, sorry, there was so much traffic.
So I'll be calling on a couple of you, and I'll let you settle, and then we're going to pass it over to the longer do. You know, without further ado, Miss Linda, we've been waiting for you. You need coffee or anything?
Let me do this first. Let me get the glasses.
Yeah. So, yeah, Tracey, I know you work from home. Belle
I do
or
work
Sherri?
from
Okay.
I do.
Anybody I can come and shadow. I just want to see how you take the data and how you put it in. Just interesting to see.
I have a job in March, so I'm not going to commit.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
that's great. Susan King
okay.
trained us. She abstracts directly from Meditech, which is not easy to navigate.
Okay.
through. And through that, she developed a lot of templates and things to kind of get nursing on board and communication on board. I know Southwest Virginia is a little, it's beautiful.
But that's a good idea.
She's so quick.
Uh-huh.
And, I was.
Okay. Good point. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And if either of you are interested in helping with the mentorship program or the handbook, please let me know. Any other questions or ideas or anything you want to implement for data managers? Are you ready?
I think so.
All right.
I think I was just supposed to, Tracey, just talk about the changes, right? Okay, 5 minutes on the changes. Well, I don't know how many of you have your data form with you with the
people doing 5 minutes and
the changes, but start first on page 8 if you have the data form, because this is the cath part of the mitral valve. So what they've gotten rid of, they've removed the eccentric jet, and the smallest and the highest area and mean of the mean gradient. This is page 8.
right there.
Right there, yeah. So you can see where they took out the smallest, highest, and then some of the etiologies they've removed. They took out essentially all of the tumor ones and just have one category for tumor. And then there's one,
Or blue new things? Or?
blue are new.
Okay.
So radiation-induced heart disease, and I would use that one all the time because we see a lot of that. And the endocarditis prosthetic valve. We've been seeing a lot of those too with the opioid crisis. So that's essentially in the cath section. And then if we go over to the next section, the mitral lesion, right there, Sherri. The new thing is the Carpentier class. We have not been doing that. So they're class 1, 2, 3, and 3B. And supposedly the definitions are going to be in the training manual. And if you go back to the lecture that Dr. Boar did in AQO, he actually went through the Carpentier classes and explained them all, and you can actually pull those up now off the STS site and do his whole lecture. So that's my plan, is to go back and listen to the lecture again.
Used to have mobility in it once upon a time. Remember that?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it was different than this.
It was different than that,
Now
because
it's
I don't
back
think
again.
we've ever used Carpentier.
I don't think we have either.
Yeah, it's different, but there was some kind of mobility thing at one
There
point.
was,
Yeah.
there was.
It was Dr. Who, I'm sorry.
It was the mitral valve maze. He was the guy from West Virginia. It was very good, very good. Acute, they've also added an acute papillary muscle rupture and other, and a not documented. So there's a few new things in there. And then they took out all of those etiologies. So it seems to be a little easier to maneuver, except for the new Carpentier class. That's probably where the biggest learning is going to be for us, is how to class that, because I don't think my surgeons put that in the op report. So where we find that, it's probably going to be, you've got to start documenting this.
Either document
Or we leave it blank.
or you do a worksheet.
Or you do a worksheet. So then if you go over to the surgery section,
Keep going.
keep going.
Okay, close. Go past the valves.
Val?
Okay, there's mitral right there. So they just moved it to another spot. So under it, and I had to go look at my screens to get all this, because it's really hard to do it from the data form. But essentially they left the major headings: anterior resection, posterior resection, and took out the locations. If you can imagine that on your screen, there's a whole bunch of locations under each of those, and they just took those out. So you just have to do a check, yes or no. Neocord, they did the same thing, anterior, posterior, and took out the locations, as well as the commissural resection. That's how. They're taking out some of the detail
child feels.
Yeah, the child feels. And then if you come down a little bit, Sherri, those are all some of the details. It's on my screen, it's a whole bunch of different things on the right-hand side, and that's where a lot of the changes they took out. They added the pannus thrombus removal and added annuloplasty without ring or pericardial suture. And then we'll skip over to the Maze section, my personal favorite.
Finally updated.
I think that's on like about page 20. They took, yeah. So there we go. There we go. So this is from the other cardiac piece of the AFib section. They kind of redid the whole left atrial appendage section and added some, I think they really kind of just changed the wording. So instead of AFib epicardial lesions, they changed it to left atrial appendage obliteration. That will be the title for that section. And then they added fields, epicardial applied occlusion device, epicardial staple or suture, and transcath device in existence. So coming down in the surgery section, go back up a little bit.
This picture?
Right there. So here's your lesion documentation, and they made this much easier. So essentially all you have to do is either it's going to be the left atrial, which are your epicardial lesions, yes or no, and right atrial, which are your endocardial lesions, yes or no. And then they removed, on page 21, that whole section of the lesion set so that you don't have to pick them, which was the hardest. That was the hardest part, was picking. And my surgeons essentially use the same lesions every time. So, but having to go through and mark all that was a little labor intensive. The other thing was the change in the AFib definitions, and that, did everyone get that from the meeting, that we're going from the 4 classes, and that's over in the in the arrhythmia section. We're going from the 4 classes, which were paroxysmal, persistent, long-standing persistent, and permanent, to just paroxysmal and persistent.
And
But
it's persistent, even if they're not in it, if they had it treated
Yeah.
at some point,
Yeah.
20 years ago. It's now.
But I don't know how that's going to map to what we've already got in there since...
Right, and a lot of mapping is going to be very confusing.
Yes. To pull it out and have it mapped exactly, I don't know. So that's what I got out of it. Anybody? It seems a bit better, but I can't really tell until I see the actual
They have gone
screens.
back. I'm not sure it's on the website because it's so preliminary.
I looked about 2 weeks ago, it wasn't there yet.
I
I
looked
don't think
today, and
It's
it's
still
not
not
there.
yeah.
I don't think it'll be there until the
Until it
month
goes
before
live.
we have.
Well into the winter.
Until we have the, all the data definitions with it.
Right.
I think that's when we will get it.
End of winter.
The glucose, the 18 to 24-hour glucose is being moved to the anesthesia module. So if you don't do anesthesia, you don't have to do that.
But they're leaving the highest and the lowest glucose. There's one in the perfusion section.
Yeah, it's in the, it's.
Oh, the highest intraoperative.
Intra,
Yeah.
and
But the admission blood sugar to ICU is going to move, or?
That was a VCSQI field.
yeah, that was a VCSQI field.
I haven't done that.
Is that staying in there?
If you want it to stay, you can, you know.
I think I think I'm leaving it.
Yeah, we.
We're still
wanted to
using it.
stay, Yeah.
Okay, because I guess when we get the new version, we're all gonna have our specialized fields put back in, or changed, or whatever. That's between you and our.
Or July 1, you can, if you don't have custom fields and you don't want to pull your data out, you can not have a vendor at all.
That's true.
Any other questions? Okay, so we're going to start quality in a few. So if you want to take a break, walk around, stretch your legs, because everyone from ACC is going to come over and join us for the quality committee meeting.
Before we run out, I do have one question for those that are here. I'm really thankful that we have some of our seasoned people. I want to know, for patients who go to postoperatively, they go and get either an ICD or a pacemaker, if that's coded as cardiac other as well as pacemaker, or only pacemaker?
I only do pacemaker.
Only pacemaker. What do you do, Linda?
Because we don't put them in the OR. Right. We put them in the cath lab.
Okay. What do you do, Linda?
I think I put them in just as pacemaker.
Okay.
But I think I saw something when I was looking through this stuff, that there was a change in that field.
Oh, a change. Read
I
your
have to go back.
definitions.
I have to go back and look.
Okay.
Based on what's in the definition? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So when I looked at the 2.91 definition, there was nothing in there. It just said, trach. If you went to the OR for a trach or laparotomy, if you put somebody on ECMO, whether it was percutaneous or open, whether it was in the ICU or in the OR. If you did a percutaneous trach in the ICU, if that is your practice, that is considered to be a re-op.
Right.
But there was nothing, I couldn't find anything in there about pacemaker.
I think, you know, since it's its own little field, I would do it. I mean, I have it,
Okay.
and we do that a lot.
What about the other facilities? Scott, what do you guys do?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was no, over here dozing. What? Say again.
If you have somebody who gets a post-op pacemaker, do you enter that in just as pacemaker, permanent pacemaker in the event section, and as cardiac re-op, or just as permanent?
It's just in the post-op other section, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
And of course, the surgeons will say, well, on some people, well, they're planning on putting this in
Right.
anyways. They feel like they're being dinged. I said, no. I said, don't worry about it. It's where it lives. you
Right.
know? Yeah. Anything that goes in there, they think they're, it's a penalty point.
They call me.
I did think it was interesting,
Is this
though.
a penalty?
They did say that if somebody, like if you had planned on, if the plan was all along to perform a procedure post-op, post-cabbage, or post-whatever, then it does not count as a re-op.
If it's stated beforehand.
Right.
It can't be stated later. Like, it's the same thing with the PCI. You know, if they get in there and they can't bypass for whatever reason, they decide that it's PCI. If they said it beforehand, it's not a re-op.
A plan